Hi, I'm David DeBoer. I am a researcher at the Berkeley Radio Astronomy Lab in Berkeley, California, and I am also the project manager for the Breakthrough Listen program, and we're here in the beautiful Karoo region of South Africa to support our operations at the Meerkat telescope. One of the things that astronomy tells us and what astronomers are searching for is our origins, our place in the universe, how we evolved to be where we're at. A lot of astronomy looks at the origin of the universe and how the universe evolved. And astronomers look at the origin of stars and planets and how stars and planets evolved. But one of the things that humans are most interested in, as we see in the public media, is how did intelligent species evolve? And so one of the cool ways you can do is that with our modern technology, you can actually try to search for technological signals that another intelligent species is sending out. We do that all the time. All of our cell phone conversations send out small signals. But we also send out radars that tell us the weather. We send out radars that probe other planets that are very powerful. We send transmissions to our satellites that orbit the Earth for communications. And if I were an intelligent species looking at Earth with a powerful radio telescope, I could see those signals and say, oh, nature can't do that. I know physics really well. Physics can't do these things. So it must be something that has evolved a way to circumvent physics and put out signals that have information or convey something about the sender. SETI's been around for a while. In fact, much of the life of kind of active radio astronomy, which really took off really after World War II, people have started to ponder SETI. So fortunately, a few people really thought about it scientifically, both in terms of, what might be transmitted by another civilization, as well as scientifically in terms of, well, what can we as humans do to receive this? And of course, Frank Drake is our notable forebear here and has been a friend to many of us and has really pioneered that. I came into the SETI world in the very early 1990s. I was very fortunate to get involved in something called Project Phoenix that the SETI Institute was running. It had kind of risen from the ashes, hence the name Phoenix, of when NASA defunded the high-resolution microwave survey that they were conducting. So they needed someone to help with these sorts of aspects, and I've kind of been the RFI guy from very early, developing some databases that we try to use. My PhD advisor at Georgia Tech was involved with the NASA SETI program to characterize RFI, and so as a young grad student, for a little bit of funding, I wrote some software that did this. And my very first professional presentation was actually a software database to look for satellites in SETI data. And then around 2000, I was very fortunate that SETI Institute got some funding to look into building an array in Northern California, at the time called the 1 hectare telescope, or the 1HT. But Paul Allen very quickly gave money for an advanced study, and it was renamed the Allen Telescope Array, which is a beautiful spot that has a very strong place in my heart. They always ask, how did you get started? A lot of it is, I could look back and say, I grew up in the high country in Colorado where the stars are incredibly bright. I do remember a lot of times driving home with the folks late, lying in the back of the pickup, because, we didn't do seatbelts then. You're allowed to lie in the back of a pickup, just looking up at the bright night sky. But I've also liked figuring things out. I remember in third grade, you had to do what did you want to be when you grew up? I knew I wanted to be a physicist, which is kind of odd in some sense, but. Earlier when NASA defunded SETI, they basically all but made it illegal for the government to fund SETI. Hence the SETI Institute raising money from private vendors, deploying Project Phoenix and other activities. But really, to have a long program, you need continuity, you need an academic kind of reserve of talent and people that build telescopes, people that you can fold in, people that learn the science of SETI, because SETI isn't just, let's point to outer space and hope and be lucky. SETI is a field of science with a lot of aspects, technical as well as, a little bit of sociological, although quite frankly, predicting what and why they're going to send is almost impossible because they could send anything. All we want to know is, are they sending something that nature can't produce? And so a lot of technology is involved. But without that kind of technical and intellectual reservoir of people, it's very challenging to continue, as well as try to work with NASA and remove the actual language that discouraged funding SETI. And we've now produced researchers that have PhDs in SETI or postdocs where SETI is a large component, or technosignatures, which is really a more accurate name for what we do. And this pulls people in. It makes it a real field. People can write papers that refute it or support it. People can have students read papers and encourage them to study this topic and so on. So it's that funding that has really enabled this to happen. But really to have the continuity and the long-term program, you need public funding. And when you're asked, well, why should the public fund SETI? Why should it fund any field of basic science? One, it funds smart people and researchers, and they might invent other things. Basically every technological discovery and convenience at one point was a breakthrough in basic research. And then you could go to philosophical. We are human because we contemplate our place in the universe. That's one of the things that makes us human. But really it's not so much should we do it, it's how much should we invest. And I think most people would agree we should not invest the entire GDP of the US in SETI. That would be foolish. But I think equally foolish is to not invest anything in SETI. And so what you hope is that there's a reasoned discourse about what level of funding is appropriate for this basic research, including technosignature research.